All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's live Q&A. We are live on Instagram and YouTube this week, so that's YouTube's working this time. All right, so what we're talking about here today is we got some. I mean, there's tons of questions. I think when you're talking about health, and I know, I mean, I've helped thousands of people, and basically when somebody comes in as a new patient, it's like there's it's a interview process, right? And people have a lot of questions. They've been through a lot of different doctors and situations, and so there's a lot of lack of clarity on what they should be doing. They almost know, like, it's that process of elimination of where we know that this doesn't work. So what the heck else am I supposed to be doing? What other questions should I be answering and or asking and answering? Because sometimes it's one of those situations where you don't know what to ask, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I've been fortunate enough in my life in being in the health and wellness space really for over 25 years to and really being obsessed with it, is that you distill information down, you get to the roots, you get to the nuts and bolts of it all. And what that ultimately can do is help people achieve things faster than what you did. I mean, that's kind of what coaching's all about, right? Like, is don't make the same mistakes that I did, and don't just try things. Know what the fundamentals are. What are the laws and principles, and especially about the body, right? And so today we're going to be talking about these major questions. There's five major questions that we're going to have to answer about our health. Really, there's a huge thing that I've seen over the years, is that people don't really fundamentally know what health is. They don't even know what questions they should be asking around it. And because they don't know what health is, they don't know it by definition, really. Is like, if you don't know what a definition of something is, how the heck are you supposed to achieve it, right? If you don't even know if you're on course. And if you don't really know what you're looking for, how are you supposed to find it? And so there's this fundamental issue about not knowing what health is. And then we also, if you look at our health statistics, right? We look at all of the health statistics out there, diagnoses, symptoms, conditions. I mean, we have the most symptoms, diagnoses, and conditions that we ever have in human history out there. And then we keep using the same darn approach to try to solve those issues. And clearly, it's not working very well. I mean, it's just keeps getting worse and worse over time. And so we've got to do something totally different. There's that definition, or that saying that was from Einstein, that said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And we're definitely doing that in what we call healthcare, but it's more about disease management care. So we need to change our perspective. We need to have we have to change the way that we view and manage our health to get different outcomes and to get true outcomes. And so that's my purpose here. When I'm doing lives or educating people, is to help them become their own doctors, is what I say. And what that really means is how to view and manage health, how to view and manage health totally different, so you can get different results. And what I mean by different results is the results that you need to get. And so by answering these questions today, we'll talk about these questions, these five fundamental questions that you have to know. These, like, you can literally, look at all the science and all the information out there, but if you don't know to ask these questions and you don't know the answers to these questions, then you can know all the science and all the other stuff, but you're not following the right fundamentals. And so there are big blind spots. And so let's make sure that you understand them today. So let's get started here. So what we want to do is, what's the first question? All right. Well, let me say this too, guys, is that, remember, I'm doing these live Q&As every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And something else that's going on today that I want to put out there is that I am doing my live Road to Wellness Masterclass webinar tonight at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can get registered for that still. And there is a link in my Instagram bio. And if you click on that, you will find another link in there that will get you registered for the class tonight. And so that's my fundamental course that will explain even more details, some of what we're talking about here today. But it'll give you, it's like my crash course in doctor training for people, to help them become their own doctors and understand what they need to do in order to figure out their health issues. And so, again, you can go to my Instagram bio, the link in there, click on that. There's another link, and that'll get you registered and signed up. And that'll be at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time tonight. And so if that's something you want to do, I look forward to seeing you there. All right. So what's the first question that we want to ask today is going to be, what is your greatest asset? Okay. So what is your greatest asset? And, we're talking about health. And so I think it's easy to say, like, well, it's easy to say, hey, it's my health. But do you actually put your health as your greatest asset? I mean, what do your actions say about this? Because when people think about assets, I think that they often think about financial things, right? So, like money and real estate or material things, right? That what are my assets? Because we've put assets in a certain context. But when it comes to, if we really look at the big picture of it all, is health our greatest asset? Well, yes. Now, how do we know that? Is like you can have all the money in the world, but if you're sick, that money might help you to create more resources, but it doesn't mean that that's the pivotal factor of what gets you out of a health problem or what creates health, right? So I often reflect back onto when my wife got sick, and this is how I got into functional medicine again, is that she was not the woman that she was designed and created to be. Okay. She was not the person that she wanted to be. She was not the mom she wanted to be. She was not the wife she wanted to be when she lost her health. Okay. It didn't in ways, it doesn't matter how much money you have in those moments either. There's a saying that says, when you're healthy, you want 10,000 things. When you're unhealthy, you just want one. Right. And that is to be healthy again. So whatever you put in front of your health is exactly what you can't do when you lose it. And so for a lot of ladies, I know that they put their kiddos and their family in front. I see a lot of guys put like careers and work in front, and there's no doubt that there's women who do that too. But either way, I mean, that's a really good saying and understanding is that whatever you put in front of your health is exactly what you will lose when you lose your health. You can't be the person, the mom, the husband, the wife, the spouse, the person that you were created to be when you lose your health. And it doesn't matter how much money you are. I mean, there's a great unfortunate example of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, billions of dollars, still losing his life in his 50s. It's not it's just a classic example that health is not about money, although it does help you to maybe gain more resources. But if those resources are off course and not really building health. And usually I see that people who do have more financial means are doing more treatments. And just because you're treating something doesn't mean it's addressing the root cause. Okay. It still could be managing symptoms and even in a natural world. So you've got to have clear definitions here and realize that health is our greatest asset. You can have tons of money, still be losing your health. How many people have lots of money and they've really driven themselves into strong careers and building businesses, but then their health is failing because of it too? Because there's truth is that building business can be stressful. So, anyways, I want to make sure that we're proving the point that money does not build health. It's very specific. We need to be very much more specific about it. All the material things that we have, it doesn't build health, right? you know the people in your life. I mean, that's something else that I hear that people say is their greatest assets is their family and the people that they know. And there's no doubt that these things are extremely important and actually add value to our lives in a lot of ways. But but again, like, if you put your family first and you don't put your health first, then if you get to a point where you lose your health, you can't take care of your family. I mean, it just gets proven over and over and over again. And I just want to make sure that we nail that in, that we can't be martyrs, right? We can't put other things in front of our health in order, to live the life that we want to have. So we got to make sure that we're putting health as our greatest asset, and make sure that your actions speak louder than that. That you're even though it kind of sucks, is that where you're buying organic food or something, right? So you're buying high quality food, which what costs more, right? It costs more, but you got to see it as an investment, right? And so it does cost more. It is an investment, than taking or eating the more conventional and processed stuff, right? And and so if you're unwilling to even go to a place of eating organic versus conventional, then your actions are speaking louder than your words. That you want to be healthy, but yet you say, well, organic's no different. Or you you have all you end up allocating all your money towards, hey, I got a brand new 4K TV, I got a brand new truck, I got a brand new golf clubs, whatever it is, right? Got a brand new house, but yet organic food's too expensive. So it's about priorities. It's about putting things in order. It's about, are your actions speaking louder than your words? Are you truly putting your health as your greatest asset? Are you minimizing health in any way where you're eating cheat meals to, oh, it's just a little bit here, it's just a little bit of alcohol here, that's not that big a deal, it's just a little bit of soda. you know are your actions speaking louder than your words? All right, now that's a whole topic in itself, but at least there's some stuff we talked about. So clearly health is our greatest asset, but if it's our asset, then we have to our greatest asset, then we have to know what it is. And so when I ask people what health is, I get a whole list of different answers to this. Now, what this shows us um, is that we don't have clear definitions. And it's kind of like if you were traveling, let's say, I don't know, from California to Florida, and you either had a GPS or you were just trying to figure it out as you go along with no road signs. What's the likelihood you're going to you get to Florida from California without the signs on the road map? Not very likely, right? So you got to be very careful here. There's a great analogy here that, like, oftentimes when I'm in groups and I'm doing speaking, is what I'll do is I have a compass, right? Or I'll ask people, close their eyes and point to north. All right. And so everybody close their eyes and they're pointing to north. And what you see is people are pointing in all different directions. And this is a lot like when you ask people what health is that it's all pointing in different directions. And there is a true north, right? So ultimately, in order to find that true north, you need a compass, you need a measurement, right? And so you need something like that shows you where is that true north. We got to set the course. We got to get the definition. In that analogy, I often talk about too is that there's an analogy where you can fly from LA to New York, and if that plane is 1 degree off north or south, by the time you get to New York from LA, you're 150 miles north or south. And so what seems like a very small amount in the very beginning ends up being a compounding amount when you travel far enough, when you let go enough time off course. And so this happens a lot of times in health, is that at first, making mistakes around health doesn't really add up to much. But if you take enough time and enough off course, it becomes a big deal. And next thing you know, you have a diagnosis, symptom, problem, condition. And so you didn't mean to get there, but it was, again, that you didn't have the true definition. You weren't at true north. And so I want to make sure that we're getting this understanding. So when I ask people what health is, the most common answers that I get is it's how I look, it's how I feel, it's if I have no symptoms, I have no diagnoses, it's that I'm not taking medications, that I have my physical and mental well-being. That's a very general way of looking at it, right? And then do what I want. I don't really have any restrictions in my life, right? Like I can do whatever I choose to do, really, no restrictions. And although that these are all great things, does that really define health? No, it doesn't define health. And there's all sorts of different answers, right? So it's everybody pointing in different directions, but it's much more definitive than this, health is. And so we've got to get to that point. So that is the point, is that all of these things are good, but everyone's definition is different and not a true definition of health. And so it's not the true north, so you won't reach your destination and what you want. And clearly, again, we have tons of different diagnoses and symptoms and conditions out there that, most people, the majority of people are getting something, right? And it seems to be normal, but it's common, not normal, right? And so we've got to understand how do we keep perpetuating these issues. So if health is our greatest asset, what the heck is it, right? It's not, if you look good and feel good, that's not what health is, okay? It's not whether you have symptoms or conditions or not. It's not whether you're taking medications or not. It's not just have physical and mental well-being. It's not whether you have limitations or restrictions or not, okay? It's very much more specific. Think about this, is that when it comes to look good and feel good, two of the biggest diagnoses that we have out there are heart disease and cancer. And when do most people feel those? Actually, in the beginning or the end? It's usually the end. let's roughly 80% of the time, the first sign of a heart problem is a heart attack or a stroke. And can you have stage 4 cancer and not feel it? Yes. Okay. So those two conditions, those two situations are blamed for 1 out of 2 deaths in our country. And so are more people passing away and dying of diseases that they feel or don't? The ones that they don't, right? So clearly health is not how we look or how we feel. So I think that's a very good quick reference analogy that we've got to wake up about this. All right. So instead of trying to define health, let's move forward here. Instead of trying to define health for the moment, because we're going to get there, let's talk about this question. What are the top 3 things that people would say they need to do to be healthy? What are the top 3 things that people would say they need to do to be healthy? And what's the most common answers? Now, I say that I ask this question a lot, and people are very programmed to answer this question. And what are the 3 things that people say they need to do to be healthy? Is what? Eat right, nutrition, right? Exercise and sleep. It's very much conditioned into our brains, from commercialization to from grandma and grandpa, mommy and daddy, mother, father, preacher, teacher. These are all these influences that are in our lives about just things in our life. And they distill this information into us that, oh, if you exercise, you eat right, and you sleep well, you're going to be healthy. Now, these are very important things. Like, they are things that I love, but there's a clear distinction here, is that they don't cause health, they support health. They don't cause health, they support health. So what's the difference between cause health and support health? Well, basically, it's that just because you're participating in these activities, does that mean it's going to address the root causes of your health issues? If you don't even know what the root causes of your health issues are, how can you be sure that these are going to address them, right? So there's still a lot of obscurity. There's still a lot of questions. There's also this the situation of, here's an example. Let's talk about this. Like, so think about this. If you had a sliver in your finger, like you have a cause, there's a trigger happening. If you eat better, you exercise, and you sleep, does that address the sliver in your finger? No, right? Like, there's still a sliver in your finger. You have to pull out that sliver. There's still a cause happening. Does exercise and eating right and sleeping help support your body's functions? Yeah, for sure, but it doesn't address that cause. This became very clear to me when my wife Victoria got sick, and we found through functional medicine testing that she had mold toxicity. Okay. And it's a toxin that was storing inside her body. She wasn't eliminating it out. And, my wife, Victoria, she is a nutritionist. We've lived very healthy lifestyles our whole life. At the time, when this happened, she could still sleep. Like, she was sleeping fine. The problem was that she had this huge rash all over her body that was extremely itchy. So that was definitely interfering with her sleep at that point. But before then, her sleep was fine, right? And so she ate right, she exercised, she slept decent with an itch. Did any of that address the mold? No. Okay. And it's such a clear distinction when you get there. But don't get me wrong, again, these are very important things. They can aid in so many ways to support your body. But if you don't get to the root causes, you're just supporting a body that's still dysfunctional. And when you get into a disease diagnosis symptom problem, what you'll see in like statistics and research is that your body has to go from 100% function down to around 60% function in these organs, these cells, and these tissues. They have to break down to a far enough degree to meet a medical threshold of breaking down. And so think of that like a cavity on a tooth, that now there's these cells and these tissues and these organs that are degenerated to a point of dysfunction. All right. They're not 100% function. So you can exercise, you can eat right, you can sleep well. But yet, if you're not addressing the cavity, all the reasons why the cavity had formed, and supporting the cavity very specifically to rebuild it, your chances of recovery is very, very low. Okay. Here's the point, is that although exercise and nutrition and sleeping well are very important, they just support health. They don't cause health. and we should not use them as the primary tools to bail us out of a problem. But that's what we do, right? Because people have not been exercising well. They have not been eating well. So logically, it makes sense that we should start to participate in those. But when those things fail and don't seem to be working, now people start to believe that their diseases and diagnosis and problems are more about their age and their genes, because that's what medicine tells people. And because they've tried the more natural things, that and it's still failing, that they believe, oh man, I just can't get out of this, and now they're a victim to their genes or their heritage, and yet there's still so much they haven't addressed. Okay, so here's also some examples around this nutrition and exercise thing. Is that, nutrition is usually too general. Like, we have to be much more specific about it. There's way too many diets out there, and there's no one size fits all. You have to understand specifically for each individual what they need, and that's something that you have to get. You have to get functional medicine testing around foods, around your immune system, which has a lot to do with your gut. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there with that, but just put that in there. There's also a lot of information overload and overwhelm around nutrition because of all the diets, because of all the research, because of all the information. And how do you distill all of that? Again, you have to be tested and make it more individual. I talk to people all the time, and they're very confused about nutrition, and they don't know what to do. So that also leads to analysis to paralysis things, and they never really get started, and they don't really know how to follow through. So there's a lot of different aspects to the nutrition part, but there's a lot of information, hard to work your way through it. It's too generalized. It's not specific enough, and so it needs to be more clear. There are obvious things that need to be taken out, and those can be covered in some of my other videos. But big five is what I say from here: dairy, gluten, corn, soy, processed sugar, or processed foods, fast foods. They need to be eliminated out. No sodas. Eliminate the alcohol. Just, there's no such thing as moderation. Get those things out. That would be my quick advice for you around the nutrition. That will help immensely. When it comes to exercise, main misconceptions here, I think, is that there's a big difference between health and performance. There's a lot of athletes. I was an athlete. I used to squat 500 pounds. Squatting 500 pounds is good for performance, but it's not good for health. Certain workout regimens, routines, programs, are more built around performance and maybe even like things like bodybuilding. But does performance and bodybuilding equal health? Not necessarily. Okay. There's a lot of bodybuilders out, by the way, that die of heart attacks in like their 40s and 50s. There's a lot of professional athletes who die of heart attacks in their 40s and 50s. And so, performance does not equal health. And when it comes to exercise, there's a lot of different regimens and routines and programs that don't really necessarily make you healthy. Right. And then there's another philosophy around exercise, which is no pain, no gain. And this is not, you do want to probably push yourself a little bit, but what does that really mean? And it needs to be individualized. And so we don't want to be pushing into like we want to avoid this no pain, no gain thing. And especially if you're a woman, and I'll cover that in just a second. And there's lots of focus again on how you look. And so if you can see 6-pack abs, you must be healthy. If you're on the front of a magazine that has a bunch of airbrushing and all that kind of stuff, right? There's a lot of expectations that are being set in our society that are unrealistic. And just because you have a 6-pack does not mean that you're healthy. You can force your body into certain ways of looking, like, again, bodybuilding, or even, you don't have to be a bodybuilder. There's different forms of physique and swimsuit competitions and all of these things that you have ladies and men looking a certain way, but they do push themselves to an extreme performance level that isn't necessarily healthy. And so we have to have a better understanding of that. Just because you look good, you have 6-pack abs, does not mean that you're healthy, and especially as a woman. There's a lot of ladies, when you get to that lean amount of body fat, a lot of women actually have a lot of hormone dysfunction. They may look good on the covers, guys, ladies. They may see these ladies on these fitness magazines, but remember, there's airbrushing there, and just because you can see 6-pack does not mean that that woman is healthy. Lots of them probably have hormone dysfunction. Okay, and so you have to have better clarity there. Let's talk about a couple of examples here to nail this home. Is that, especially for ladies, so let's talk about this, is that I run into a lot of ladies who they're having hormonal issues and they're gaining weight. They're fatigued. Their energy's poor. Their libido's poor. They haven't been exercising. They haven't been eating right. And so they're like, you know what? Or they've been eating too much, you know. And so what happens is they're like, I need to hit the gym and I need to restrict my calories because calorie restriction is another thing around nutrition that's been taught. And it's not necessarily about calorie in, calorie out. And that's a whole topic in itself as well. Um, but when you're looking at this, and this happens a lot with ladies, is that they're like, man, I've been slacking. I haven't been engaged in exercise and nutrition. So they go hit the gym hard. They even hire trainers, which is great. And then they start to eat a lot less about the calorie in, calorie out concept. And so it's like they go hit the gym. They're doing like 1 to 2 hours, like 5 to 6 days a week. They're eating like 500 calories a day, putting themselves in caloric restriction. What is that called? What's that? Is what that's called? But then what they find as far as symptoms for themselves is they see that they're actually gaining more weight, they're gaining more fat, especially around their midsection and their thighs and into the hips. And then also their energy's still poor, their libido's still poor, and it's really messing with their mind. It really messes with their mind. They're like, what the heck is going on? Now, physiologically, what's happening here is that your body is in protective mode. And one of the ways that it protects you when you have hormonal issues is it helps you actually to build more fat tissue. Fat actually helps you to make more hormones. And so because you are stressing your body more through the workouts and eating less, your body's actually holding on to and even building more fat tissue to actually support your hormones and protect you. And so it can make you gain weight. And so exercise and nutrition alone can both be actual stressors to your body that can put your body into more dysfunction. So that's, again, you got to be very careful that does exercise and nutrition play a good role in being healthier? Yeah. But you need to be much more specific about it. You can't just bank on them bailing you out of the problem, that there's a lot more details that need to be addressed, and you need to be more specific for each individual and get out of this one size fits all general concepts. Okay. So hopefully that kind of nails home those things. And then when it comes to sleep, think about this, is that, there's tons of people who can sleep all day. All right. And they're, because they're so fatigued, and a lot of times they're just so depressed. There's people who have severe depression, they can sleep all day. Is that addressing the cause of their problems? No, like it's a behavior that is a way of avoidance. And they're not wanting to deal with their life. And so they're just wanting to sleep. It's their coping mechanism. Some people bail to food and different drugs and different things, but some people use sleep as a drug. And so again, you could sleep all day, but is that addressing the cause? No. But is sleep important? Yeah. Like if you don't sleep, you could be really inflamed. All right. It's very important. But again, don't just say sleep will create health. All right. So have I talked about this long enough? What the heck is health? What the heck is health? So how do we define this? Well, there's definitions out there in our society that will help direct you. One of them is from the World Health Organization, and it says that health is the state of optimal function of your body. You've heard me say function a few times already, because I just can't not say it. But health is the state of optimal function of your body, physically, mentally, socially. And then what I like to throw in there as my opinion is spiritually. Because I believe, and I've seen this, is that the power that heals the body, or that made the body, heals the body. What does that mean? Is that the body heals itself. And just to throw this in here real quick, is that, think about this. The body heals itself. Its set point is health, not disease and diagnosis, although we've been taught to believe it's normal to be sick. No, watch this. If I hit my head on my desk right here and split my head open, that's not the cause of the problem. And if I continue to hit my head and take medicine or something natural to treat the symptoms, I still got a problem because I'm still hitting my head. If I stop hitting my head, what happens to this symptom? It goes away. Who does the healing? My body. The power of the body heals the body. So it moves, when you stop stressing the body, it moves back towards homeostasis. Its set point is health. So if it's not going back towards health, you have to ask what's interfering with it. Okay. And so your body, that's why I say that the health is the state of optimal function, physically, mentally, socially, and I throw in spiritually, because the power of the body heals the body, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmities. What does that mean? It's not just the absence of disease and diagnoses and symptoms and problems, whether you look good and feel good, right? So again, clearly you can have heart disease and cancer and not feel it until it's too late. And they're two of the biggest killers that we have. So clearly, health is not how we look or how we feel. So it just confirms that this statement, this definition, that health is not how we look or how we feel. It's how we're functioning physically, mentally, socially, and then my 2 cents is also add in spiritually. Another definition comes from Webster's dictionary that says that health is a condition of wholeness in which all the organs are functioning at 100%, or they're functioning 100% of the time. Okay, so what you see is that in a couple different major definitions of health, you're seeing the same word, function, how our bodies are functioning. And Webster's is great because it's talking about all of your organs functioning 100% of the time. And so what that makes me think of is that how many people have organs removed, whether it's tonsils, adenoids, appendix, gallbladder, ovaries, right? These are some of the most common, uteruses, that by definition, you cannot be 100% functioning if you have organ cells and tissues removed. All right. Now, they can treat symptoms and it can save your life, no doubt. Don't get me wrong. But now that those parts are removed, you can no longer function at 100% in your body because those parts were supposed to be there. There are some that you can live without, no doubt. Gallbladders, appendix, tonsils, no doubt. But does that mean that you're as healthy? No, because here's the thing. If it made you healthier to remove organs, then let's just get them all out. Get them all out. Because God made a mistake. They put them in there for, they're just optional. No, you cannot be functioning at 100% with the removal of organs. Why did those organs get so sick that they needed to be removed? Don't blame the gallbladder stones or the sludge as the cause of the problem. What created that? Don't call the appendix bursting the cause of the problem. What damaged the appendix enough for those organ cells, that those cells, those tissues, that organ to burst? You have to ask those deeper questions. All right. So health is our greatest asset. We've hammered that there's all of these misconceptions around what we believe health is. What health really is, get our true north here, is health is how our bodies are healing and or how our bodies are functioning. And there needs to be, so that what I like is to summarize the definition of health is that it's how our bodies are functioning physically, mentally, socially, spiritually, 100% of the time. Okay. All right. So now you know what health, the definition of health is. Now we know what our true north is. So if health is how our bodies are functioning physically, mentally, and socially 100% of the time, what controls, the third question is what controls function? All right. What controls function? All right. So the way to think about this is, what's the most important organ in your body? Most common answer to this is the heart, and it's not the most important organ in your body. It's actually your brain. All right. So if you look at what controls function in the body, it's actually the brain and through the nervous system. So the brain and the nervous system is the master system in the body. It controls every organ, cell, tissue, and function of the body. Without the brain and nervous system, each system would not exist. Okay. And so you can look up that definition about the brain and nervous system actually in Gray's Anatomy textbook. Is that it controls the functions of the organ cells and tissues. Now, so what does this mean? Is that it controls adaptation to your environment. It controls what your body's experiencing in its environment. That's what adaptation is. And so it has a lot to do with what's called the stress response. And so think of it this way, is that your body's always responding to its environment, and there's things that stress it. And a great example is that if you're stuck on an iceberg, it's super cold, your body's going to have to adapt to that cold weather. And initially it's going to start to shiver and try to warm you up. But because you're like in Antarctica or something, it's super cold. Let's say you don't have the right equipment, that your body is going to take the blood and nutrients from from your appendages. So like your fingers, your toes, your arms, your legs, and redistribute it to your most vital parts, your organs. What does vital mean? Is it means the things that you need to stay alive. So your organs, like your brain, your nervous system, your heart, your lungs, your digestive organs, your immune system organs, your glands, it's going to redistribute and prioritize those organs over fingers, toes, And so in this mechanism, your toes and fingers can literally freeze and die on purpose. Your body's doing this on purpose as a mechanism of protection and survival. Now, so is the cause of the problem your fingers and toes freezing, or is it the environment in the cold? It's the environment in the cold, right? And see, your nervous system is kind of like that thermostat that's saying, "Oh my gosh, we're adapting to this cold. We have to adapt to this cold. Hey, body, here's what you need to do. We need to distribute this blood to the most vital organs so we can protect them and keep them alive as long as possible, while we can figure out how to get off of this iceberg." And so the to get to the cause is not to treat the symptoms that are happening on purpose that the body's doing for protection. It's that you have to understand, how are you on this iceberg and how do you get off? That's addressing root causes. This is another great example where you can eat right, you can exercise, you can sleep well on an iceberg, but you're still on an iceberg. You got to get off the iceberg, right? So that's what that's a great way to explain functional medicine and functional medicine testing, is it finds icebergs so you can get off of them. Stop triggering, stop this adaptation that your body's naturally doing. Your nervous system's coordinating all of these things, but then it's telling your body to change, right? It's telling your hormones to change. It's telling your immune system to change. It's telling your digestion to change. It's telling your metabolism to change. It's telling all of these mechanisms to change, and it's coordinating all of that. So that's why this brain and nervous system is so important. And so we've got to understand what it has to adapt to. And so this actually leads us to the fourth question. So what have we talked about so far? Health is our greatest asset. Health equals 100% function, physically, mentally, socially, spiritually, 100% of the time, right? In health equals, so what controls health, what controls like adaptation and function to life, is the brain through the nervous system. And because the brain and nervous system is coordinating and adapting to the environment, telling organ cells and tissues to change and adapt, what are the things that cause those adaptations? What are the stressors is the fourth question. And so there's three stressors that we have to be aware of. They're physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. Okay, so those are the three classifications, which is kind of nice, guys, is that because you can look at all the diagnosis, symptoms, problems, and conditions out there, and they all filter in to these three stressors. And there's definitely subcategories of these three stressors. What are physical stressors? Well, definitely trauma. It could be birth trauma. It could be, brain trauma, traumatic brain injuries. It could be physical abuse as a kid, which also, creates emotional trauma. Once you have organ, cell, and tissue damage because of neglect factor, maybe think of like a cavity in a tooth, that then now that tooth isn't 100%. And so now you have physical dysfunction within an organ or cells and tissues that's a physical stress on the body. That's like, it's like slowing down the function of the body. It's like pulling a trailer. If you think of like your body has to work harder to make up for and compensate for that dysfunction, that's a physical stress. When you have organ, cells, and tissues removed, that's now a physical stress that you're missing those organs. When you look at chemical stressors, you can definitely look at all like those big five things that I said before about nutrition. There's all these different types of chemicals from foods in our environment that our bodies have to deal with. There's these internal toxins that even could come from bacteria, parasites, yeast, viruses that cause inflammation and stress response in your body. Mold toxicities, heavy metals. There's all of these types of toxicities and chemicals. Medications. Medications. People are taking medications like crazy, right? So those could be toxic. So there's lots of different chemical stressors, and then the emotional stuff, and that could be work, it could be relationships, it could be definitely health. I have a lot of people who are stressed out emotionally and depressed because of where their health is, and they're losing function. And so these are the three areas of stress that can cause adaptation in our bodies. So initially, we're adapting to these things: physical, chemical, emotional stressors. If you don't address them, what happens, like the iceberg analogy, is that with enough time, these cells, the tissues, the organs, they break down, they freeze, they grow a cavity, they become dysfunctional, and they decrease from 100% function down to 60% function. And so now these organ, cells, and tissues are broken down enough that maybe you have a symptom. But this is where a lot of times where the conditions and the diagnoses come in. But see, so many times then the conditions and diagnoses are blamed as the cause of the problem, but yet they're they're the result of dysfunction happening over time. And time doesn't mean it has to be a long time, right? So don't say, hey, it needs to take 20, 30 years for something to develop. It doesn't have to work that way. So we can't blame symptoms and diagnoses as the cause. They're the result. Think of it kind of like this. This is a good example that divorce is not the cause of the problem. Divorce is the effect. It's the result of the choices leading up to, right? So don't blame divorce. That's like diagnosis. Don't blame the diagnosis. So if a doctor is blaming the diagnosis as the cause, that's not true. There's things that stress the body, that cause the cells, the tissues, the organs to change. And now ultimately, with enough change and adaptation, now they're broken down enough, these cells, organs, and tissues, that now you can get a diagnosis. Okay. Can't put the cart in front of the horse, in other words. All right. So hopefully that's making sense there. And that's deep, guys. Like, you see, again, if you don't have these fundamentals right, it doesn't matter if you know all the new treatments and all of these different things out there, the new science and strategies. But if your framework of understanding is totally off, you still have the wrong strategy. All right. So what have we covered so far? Health is our greatest asset. Health equals 100% function, physically, mentally, socially, spiritually. What controls functions? What's the most important organ in the body? Brain through the nervous system. It's the master control system. It's what allows our body to adapt to its environment. Our body's always adapting to its environment. And there's things that stress the body, which is physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. That's the fourth question. What stresses the function of our body and creates adaptation through our nervous system is going to be physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. So that leads us to the fifth question, is that if physical, chemical, and emotional stressors are what cause stress on our body, making our bodies adapt, causing cells, tissues, organs to change, which ultimately leads to the progression into symptoms, conditions, and diagnoses, then what are the three things that we must be aware of, test for, completely correct, and maintain for our entire lifetime in order to be healthy and well? Let me say that fifth question again. What are the three things that we must be aware of, test for specifically for each individual, correct, and maintain for our entire lifetime in order to be healthy and well? What three things? Physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. All right. Those are the three categories. And then there's multiple things underneath of them. But those are the three areas, those are the three categories that we must be aware of. I bring an awareness to you. You need to know how to test for. You need to know how to correct and maintain for an entire lifetime. That's how we're going to achieve health. But that's the fifth question, is those are the three things that we have to address. And I would say extend that question into, when's the best time to start that? When's the best time to know that? When's the best time to address that? 10 years from now or right now? Right now, right? Or even better, actually, which is water under the bridge for most of us, when we're kids, okay? When we're young, in order to change our healthcare system, we've got to change our approach from day one, all right? That's how we get ahead of the game. So as parents, as grandparents, as people who know parents and people with kids, we need to start preaching and teaching these 5 questions and helping people to gain clarity and understanding so we can change things upstream. Because it's just a law and principle about living things. The longer that you neglect it, the more damage will occur, the more permanent, irreversible damage that can occur. You have organs that are removed. You can't come back from that, right? But what you can do is optimize what you do have. And so you're going to have, like, if you take a gallbladder out, you're going to have to optimize the body's functions as much as possible. But then you are going to have to support liver and the functions that the gallbladder has. You're going to have to support that the rest of your life. And the fortunate thing is that you don't always have to do that through medicine, that there are natural approaches to do that. But having the clarity of understanding will help you to support the things that you need to and not leave your greatest asset, your health, in a blind spot. Okay. All right. So we've covered a lot here today. This is vital, very important information. I do videos on tons of different symptoms and conditions and things. And I end up talking about these things over and over and over again because these are the fundamentals. If you get these 5 questions wrong, it doesn't in a way matter what other questions you're asking. All right. So to sum this up again, health is number one. Health is the number one question to be asking is what is our greatest asset? And your answer needs to be health. And you need to prove to yourself that it is. That instead of buying the new golf clubs or the new iPhone or something, are you allocating your finances and time and effort to building your health instead of the new fad, the new bright, shiny object, right? Is your grocery shopping bill larger than your entertainment bill? Something like that. The money that you're spending on entertainment or your new golf clubs or material things, right? So number one question, what is your greatest asset? And your answer better be health, and you got to prove it to yourself that it is. So if health is your greatest asset, this is the second question. What is health? And what do we find out? That it's not a lot of ways that we do or have been taught to perceive health. It's actually how our bodies are functioning physically, mentally, socially, and then my 2 cents is spiritually. And not merely the absence of disease and infirmities, it's when our bodies are functioning 100% all the time, okay? So if health is those things, then we need to understand what controls the function of our body. A key word in that health definition is function. So what controls the functions of our body? And what do we talk about is it's the brain and the nervous system's ability to adapt to its environment and the stressors, okay? So the brain and nervous system is very important for adaptation and telling your body what to do. And so technically it's coordinating all of this. You need to understand what can damage it, what can stress it, what causes it to adapt, and what that leads us to the fourth question was what stresses the function, what causes the adaptations. It is physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. And so that led us to the fifth question, which is that if physical, chemical, emotional stressors are the 3 things that cause adaptation, cause cell changes, tissue changes, ultimately organ dysfunction, ultimately leading to symptoms, conditions, diagnoses, then what are the 3 things that we need to be aware of, test for, specifically for each individual through the functional medicine testing, correct, maintain for our entire lifetime in order to be healthy and well? What are the 3 things? Physical, chemical, emotional stressors. And then I've added in a little bit more. When's the best time to start that? Right now. Don't delay. Make health your priority. Get after it. All right. So I hope you learned a lot here today. I know it's about, we're in 50 minutes in or so. I get it. We only have so much time. I hope that my hope and my intention is to give you the high value for the time that you're trading to listen to me. Know that, the wisdom that I'm coming from comes from a lot of experience, which led to, of course, a lot of education too. But it's the experiences of going through hardships of being disabled at 19 years old. That's something that I went through that taught me a lot about the nervous system, actually. And I was a college football player. And I picked up a chair, my spine collapsed and basically shifted. And within 4 months, I'm disabled and can't walk. When my wife got sick in 2014, it was very clear that medicine and the testing that they do was much more, again, about diagnoses and treatment of those diagnoses, not about root causes, which led us to functional medicine, which is about root cause medicine testing and individualized comprehensive testing to get to these physical, chemical, emotional stressors. And so we can remove them, address them, and allow our body to move back towards homeostasis, which is normal. So, through those experiences, it took my wife 3 years to recover. It was tough. And so, but because of those experiences, I'm never at the mercy of someone with an opinion or a theory or just education. That it really helped me to put everything together. So I really feel fortunate about that. And it is a unique approach because of the experiences, but the uniqueness is not because it's like a theory or something. It's just the fact is that there's a lot of laws and principles of our behaviors and mindsets and the conditioning that we get in our society that we've got to break the mold. And that's what I'm doing here today is break the mold in our perceptions to change our reality and then therefore our actions around it. Knowing that, we're not a victim to our circumstances. We're not a victim to our heritage and our genes, that there's all of these things that we can address and our body wants to move towards health and homeostasis. And I think we got to remember that. because we've been conditioned to believe that it's supposed to break down. So it is a unique approach in those ways, but I'm using laws and principles to help people through very specific individualized testing that's very objective, which means that it's not exactly about about how you look and how you feel. It's about how your body's functioning again, and that's why they call it functional medicine. So, anyways, all right, let's finish up here. Again, hope you learned a lot. If you have questions, email me at info@drgunyon.com. You can direct message me here on Instagram. This is also on YouTube, so leave comments in there in the comments section. Reach out. Go to my website, drgunyon.com. You'll learn a lot more about our story there, a lot more about functional medicine, about the approach. If you want to speak with me, I mean, I do have what's called a discovery call. That it's free. You can actually we can actually set up a time where you can speak with me a little bit more about maybe what you're going through and see if I would be a good fit to find solutions for you. And so I do that as a service to just kind of make sure that I'm helping people direct them in the right direction for the right reasons and make sure that it's a good fit. And I think of just setting expectations too. So yeah, I do that, and so you can do that. You can get set up with that off of the website. You can actually do that in the Instagram on my Instagram bio in that link as well. And then at the beginning, I also talked about, listen, guys, I do what's called the Road to Wellness Masterclass. It's live webinar every other week, usually around that. It's about that most of the time. And this is a crash course on understanding some of the things that we talked about today, but getting a big picture of all of this, making sure that I always say I'm training everybody becoming their own doctors. And because ultimately who's responsible for your health? You are. So you have to have the right perspectives, perceptions, applications, decisions that lead you in the right direction. Okay. And so that's what that's for. And what the intention behind that also is that if you're somebody who's struggling with your health, then let's get you tested, right? But also let's make sure you're looking at it from the right perspective first, right? So it's a great training course in order to take care of your health, in other words. So that is coming up tonight at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can get to the link in the bio, in my Instagram bio, and there's a link inside that link that you click on and you can get registered. If you're seeing this on YouTube, then you can also go to info@drgunyon.com, email us, and ask for the link for the webinar as well tonight, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, guys. It'll be well worth your time. I guarantee you it's worth your investment of time. I feel like what I've given you today is definitely worth your investment of time. And so let me know your questions. Look out for my live Q&As every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. You guys have a great day, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day. See you later. Bye.